The Fortnite World Cup happened yesterday, and apparently this Wired story. Oh, it helps if I don't paste the link in twice. Oh, it's going to be like, you have 3 free articles left this month. I'll just switch to a different device, my dude. All right. So yeah, the Fortnite World Cup happened over the weekend. It was a 3-day event. This story comes from Wired, and I just kind of want to fly over and look at what happened at the Fortnite World Cup. You know, we're not going to get too in the weeds about the individual winners and stuff like that, but I want to bring up a couple different numbers. First of all, the 16-year-old Kyle Giersdorf, or he's also known as Booga, won $3 million. The $3 million grand prize at the Fortnite World Cup Finals when he won the solos. A 16-year-old walked away with $3 million for playing Fortnite, guys. Awesome. How freaking cool is that? A 16-year-old not only won the solo round, but I know that there were qualifiers that led into this weekend. So he had to perform, time in and time out. And I know that there was people as young as 14 years old that were playing in this thing. So yeah, he walks away with the $3 million. And what I wanted to touch on more was the viewership and the engagement. So Fortnite, as we all know, wildly popular game. And it is among the top 3 most viewed games at any given time over on Twitch. Let's check right now. Let's head over to Twitch. See how many people are watching Fortnite. We've got 106,000 people watching Fortnite tonight. No special events going on. This is just random people streaming, talking about their experiences at the World Cup. And it is the 3rd most viewed game currently over on Twitch. Over the weekend, during the finals, it pulled in how many on Anthem? Great question, Mad Brock. Get your guesses in on the chat. I'm going to keep scrolling while I talk. But the finals pulled in 2 million concurrent viewers. 2 million concurrent viewers, which is insane. The viewership during the finals made the game the top most viewed esports event in Twitch history. And now there have been bigger esports events with higher viewerships. All right, Mad Brock saying 34 for Anthem. We're not even to 34 yet. So we'll keep scrolling here. There have been higher viewed events, but not solely on Twitch. Twitch had at one point 1.5 million concurrent viewers watching the World Cup. All right, here we go. We're going to control F and we're going to type in Anthem. Anthem currently has 58 viewers. So Mad Brock, you win some sort of prize. 1 million Kafka coins or something like that. All right, let's focus on the task at hand here. This event was wildly successful. Wildly successful. And the place where I want to camp out for a second is Slasher sent this tweet out. Rod Bresla, he's an esports consultant. He's a voice in the esports community. If you keep up with any kind of esports, you've probably heard of the name Slasher. But he sent out this tweet yesterday. I don't know if this was right after or if this was during the finals, but he said, Fortnite is officially a tier 1 esport. And the esports world lost their fucking mind about it. Oh man. And the arguments range from some things that are somewhat legitimate, right? Where people are like, Fortnite can never be a legitimate esport with the RNG factor that's in it, right? So the way that Fortnite works for the 2 of you in the world that have never played this game, 100 people drop into a map, a giant map, then they fight to the death until one person remains, as there is a storm that converges in on one singular point on the map that forces the fight to a smaller and smaller area throughout the game. But part of it is that you don't know where the loot is when you drop. There are places that have a higher probability of having high value loot. But at the end of the day, where you drop, it's kind of a thing with, it's kind of like a luck thing, right? When you drop in, is the place where I'm going to have a good weapon? Is it going to have enough ammo? Is it going to have enough shields? Am I going to be able to get enough supplies dropping into the map? So that's one of the arguments. But then you get down into other arguments where people are like, well, the game is just for kids, it's trash, blah, blah, blah. And to that, I'm like, this game just had a 3-day event in which it awarded over $30 million in prize money, with the finals winner of the solos winning $3 million. It drove in massive sponsorships from massive companies. It drove over 2 million concurrent viewers. They haven't released any of the official viewership numbers. I'm sure that we're going to be just as equally blown away when those happen. And so you can't call something a kid's sport or a kid's game when there's big boy money flying around. All right? And this whole idea that Fortnite is not a tier 1 esport because it is a kid game, or it's a game for kids. Like, just get out of here with that elitist bullshit mindset, right? And recognize this event for what it was. It was a great event for Epic and for Fortnite. Yes, there's no denying that. When they sit down to have their little post-mortem debrief meeting about the Fortnite World Cup 2019, it is going to be a resounding success. And look, there's going to be certain things that they're going to want to talk about in order to improve it. But at the end of the day, when they sit down with the numbers, both viewership and money generated from the event, there's no other conclusion than you can come to than to say this was a success. So yes, from the Epic side and the Fortnite side, massive success. From an esports fan side, just as huge a success, just as important a success for the esports world. Guys, if you have been around the internet at all today, you have seen coverage about the Fortnite World Cup. And you haven't just seen coverage from Polygon, Kotaku, Dexerto, Game Rant, the sites that we use when we're talking about gaming news. No, you've seen coverage from Fox News, BBC, CBS, MSNBC. All of these mainstream media outlets. Philip DeFranco made a video on it, apparently. I don't really watch a lot of Philip DeFranco, but I know that he's a big deal over on YouTube. He made a video about it. So this has broken through and become a massive thing for mainstream people to talk about. Now, look, a lot of that conversation is, look at the lead in for these news segments is, or like as they're going to a commercial break, and when we come back, somebody, a 16-year-old kid made $3 million playing a video game. And yeah, there's a little bit of that stigma that's still attached to it as they're talking about it. But at the end of the day, there's a conversation happening outside of our circle, outside of the esports circle, outside of the gaming fan circle, and into this mainstream arena that is so important for the esports world to gain traction in. Because there are real world sponsors who are attaching their names to it. There are real world sponsors giving money to have their brand plastered all over these events. And in order for these events to stay relevant, they have to expand beyond the little circle that they've created in the gaming world. Mad Brock, you're a huge gaming fan. You said the first that you heard of the event was from a Philip DeFranco video. And was that today that you saw that video? Was he like going over the results and the prize money? Mad Brock says, yeah. And here's the thing. Mad Brock is a huge fan of video games. A massive fan of video games. And it took somebody outside of the gaming circle to talk about this event in order for him to know that this event happened. And that's why this event is a big deal, not just for Epic, not just for Fortnite, but for esports fans as a whole. Much has been said about Fortnite's place in the gaming culture, both negative and positively. one thing we cannot deny about the game is that it broke through in this phenomenon of a way that we haven't really seen really ever. Maybe Pokemon Go, but Fortnite dances happening during the World Cup, during college football playoff matches, during NFL games, during NBA games, during Fortnite references being made during the NCAA tournament. We saw Fortnite breaking into mainstream pop culture in a way we've never seen a video game really enter that arena. And in the same way, Fortnite is going to take esports through that same path. And this event is indicative of that. Fortnite's in this weird spot now, right? Because of that, like, breaking in that the video game did, people outside of gaming recognize the name Fortnite. And so, yeah, you can talk about, like, Overwatch esports or League of Legends esports. The international tournament for Dota has a massive, I think, like $32 million prize pool right now. You can talk about those things, but there's no outside connection to that. Fortnite, though, is the game that people have talked about because kids are addicted to it. People have talked about it because, kids are spending a bunch of money on it. People have talked about it because of the dances that have been happening. People have talked about it because schools have had to ban it. It has this like mainstream connection to people that when you're talking about Fortnite, the esport, the most recognizable thing in that sentence to a lot of people outside of that sphere is Fortnite. And that's a really kind of interesting angle for this event. And an interesting place that Fortnite has established for themselves within not just gaming culture, but in pop culture. And I really do think that this event is going to pull a couple different generations or a couple different segments of individuals into esports that may not have been into esports to begin with. The first is the younger crowd. A lot of the world's most popular esports currently have a very long legacy with very complex gameplay. I'm thinking about like League of Legends. I'm thinking about, Dota. These are games that have existed for over a decade. Their esports scenes have existed for over a decade. I'm thinking about a game like Overwatch, whose esports scene has existed long before the Overwatch League took off. And those are three games that have really difficult kind of rule sets to understand and to be able to know what's going on. And as a guy who's been trying to get more and more into League of Legends each week, I feel like the more stones I turn over, the more stones I find underneath. Like, I want to understand this game on a level where I can really appreciate what the pros are doing. But every time I learn one thing, I realize there's like 10 other things to learn. And it's this beast of a thing that I'm having to pour real amounts of time into learning how to watch it, learning how to understand it. I've dedicated time to watching strategy videos. I've dedicated time to watching, old like historic matches that meant a lot in the competitive scene. I'm dedicating real time to understand that esport because of its complexity and because of its history and legacy. I don't feel like I can fully appreciate it without that background knowledge. Fortnite doesn't have that. The competitive scene behind Fortnite has not existed for that long. It's an easier game as far as concepts to understand. It doesn't have 10 years of meta for somebody to catch up on and to understand and appreciate in order to come to the game and to really know what's going on. And so it's going to pull a lot of that younger audience who may be late to the party to get into too late to the party to get into like a League of Legends or a Dota. I've been trying to watch Dota. I had no clue what's going on in that. I just like watching esports, but I don't have a clue what's going on in Dota. So I think it's going to pull in that audience, and then it's going to pull in another audience who didn't even know this world existed. Because, and I think I talked about this a little bit last week when they talked about the picture-in-picture function that they were going to be bringing to Fortnite. All it took for me to get into esports was to see not even a match of the Overwatch League. I saw like a 5-minute segment of the production of the Watchpoint show, which was it used to be like their midweek show where they'd break down the upcoming matches and the matches that took place the week prior. It took me just a few minutes of watching a singular segment of that show to realize that the esports world existed and that it was cool and something for me to get into. I had like an orbital knowledge of the esports scene, but I had no real like landing point for me to say this is where I'm going to get into it. And I think Fortnite is going to be that. This event and events like this within the Fortnite sphere are going to be like that for a lot of people who aren't even aware that the esports scene exists, and they're confronted with something that they understand, and their mind is opened up to a world of possibilities about what esports can be. And so this event is not only good for Epic, but it's also good for every single other esport that exists currently, because it's going to open people's eyes to a world that they didn't know existed before. There are people that are watching those news segments, that are reading those articles published on mainstream media outlets and saying, oh, wow, I didn't realize that there were these massive events. This took place at the Arthur Ashe Arena in New York, which is where they play the U.S. Open, the U.S. tennis tournament. And there are people who are like, I didn't know they had events that, sold out arenas and gave out, 7-figure prizes to people that had sponsors, like some of the sponsors that were at this event. And it starts to legitimize esports for a whole entirely new audience. And so let's get out of here with this, man. Like, don't be the old man shaking your fist at the cloud saying, oh, damn you, Fortnite, and your RNG and your Fortnite dances and your flossing. Like, get that shit out of here. You sound like the dude who's like, oh man, football was so much better before they put those fucking roughing the passers in there. It's like, well, they're like trying to help with concussions and shit. Like, you sound old and out of touch when you're that guy who's like, I wish it could just go back to how it was. People who complain about like the NBA, there's no defense in the NBA. They never call traveling. I remember back in the day, you could fucking armbar somebody under the basket. They wouldn't call a foul. And it's like, well, guess what? NBA viewership skyrocketing through the roof, higher than it's ever been before, guys. So, and that's the same thing with Fortnite. We can look at it and complain about it all they want. And look, it may not personally be your thing. It's not personally my thing. If I'm being honest, I watched a total of probably 15 minutes of the World Cup. And it's not my thing. But I'm into other esports, and I understand this trickle-down effect that if we can get people in here on this thing that everybody kind of has a connection to in one way or another and get them filtering over into games. There may be people who watch Fortnite, who watch the Fortnite World Cup, who play Rainbow Six, and we're like, oh, I didn't realize Rainbow Six had an esports scene. Descensed, what's up, my homie, my dude, guys? If you don't yet, go follow Descensed. He's an awesome streamer. I watch him every day. He streams every weekday at 4. I think we've rated him at least once. Go give him a follow. He's awesome. In the chat, he says, I'm lurking while you play Destiny, but I agree 100%. Twitch's concurrent viewers ramped up like crazy when Fortnite took off, because so many people just had no idea. And that's exactly right. Twitch has been impacted by the trickle-down effects of Fortnite. And of specifically of like Ninja, right? Where Fortnite and Ninja broke into the mainstream because of the money that they were generating, both in revenue for Fortnite and just in like the astronomical monthly subscriber numbers and in tip and bit numbers that that Ninja was pulling in. And people came over into Twitch and realized, oh man, there is like a veritable cornucopia of creators that exist here. There are tons of people doing a lot of really cool things here. Maybe I should stick around. And the same thing's going to happen with esports, guys. With Fortnite and esports.